I don't want to ignore that's a perfect parlay into both Indiana and Purdue, but I'm going to have to go. I'm going with Indiana first just because we keep using the word he wins everywhere. In Kurt Signetti's opening press conference, and I was there, and I didn't ask the question, but someone asked him. The question was, "How do you sell your culture, your vision to the players?" And just without a batting an eye, he said, "Well, it's pretty simple. I win. Just Google me." I mean, that's a big set of onions to come into a program like Indiana, the losingest program in Division I history, and he has not only does he not back down from that, he's doubled down. He was introduced at an Indiana basketball game, and he says Purdue sucks, and so do Michigan and Ohio State. I've never backed down from anybody, and I'm not going to start now. Boom, and he gets the big rousing crowd, but it's like, wow, you know where you are, right? So he's writing a lot of checks that he's going to have to cash next year.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see because we've seen this kind of before, but not even to this level in the Big Ten. Scott Frost famously came in and said, I'm hoping the Big Ten has to adjust to me. There's been some other ones where, guys kind of come in with kind of tough talk and part of this is just, red meat for the fan base and just to get your people fired up. But you also generally say that stuff at the local club tour where you go around all the small towns in the state and kind of talk to people and there's no cameras. You don't usually say it at your opening press conference or at the basketball game when you're being introduced. So it gets picked up a little bit more that way. So it'll be interesting. I don't know how you can live up to that type of talk at Indiana. That becomes the issue because it's just going to be really hard to really run down Michigan and Ohio State, especially that quickly. But we'll see. He's definitely confident, and maybe the confidence will then bleed into the players, and they'll play a little bit better because the coach believes in them. I don't know, but it's a strange look before you've coached a game in the conference that everyone admits is always more difficult than you even think it is when you're just kind of looking at it from the outside looking in.
Well, last year, Purdue had a change in coaches, and they brought over Ryan Walters from Illinois, who did an outstanding job there. And I think that if you look at Illinois' season last year, that had a very the carryover effect was there. They were not that good, but Purdue went through the first year problems of the switch over, and Travis, no one knows it better than Travis, who was there covering that. Travis, what did you see was the biggest reason for that? And what is the reason that next year should be better?
Honestly, I think the biggest reason was it was a hard reset with Jeff Brom leaving. Not only did he leave, the entire staff left. You have Aiden O'Connell graduates after a tremendous career. Most of the main contributors to that Big Ten West title in 2022 were all gone. And so you're bringing in a bunch of players from the portal. You have Ryan Walters taking over, and whenever you have a coaching change like that, they have approximately a week and a half to do a recruiting class, which with the early signing period and everything, that makes everything different. And this was still a team that I thought was close in a lot of games. Yeah, they finished 4-8, but they played Iowa within a possession. They played Fresno State within a possession. They had a couple of other games. The Syracuse game was one where if everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And if you replay that, I think Purdue's got a great chance of winning it. But I think things are going to be better. Purdue's kind of getting bitten by the NIL bug right now. They just lost Nick Scorton to Texas A&M. And that was a straight money transaction. He led the Big Ten in sacks. He had a great season. Texas A&M went out and bought him when he went home for break and everything. So Ryan Walters is doing a great job. He's cleaned up some really good, solid recruits in the portal. I think he has a top 10 portal class right now, according to Rivals. And he's getting in some pretty decent recruits for his first full recruiting class. So I think he is building something. The hardest part is going to be the schedule next year. They've got to play Michigan. They've got to play Ohio State. No, actually, I don't think they play Michigan, but they've got to play Penn State. They have to play Notre Dame. They have to play Oregon. They have to play Oregon State at Oregon State. It is going to be a very, very difficult schedule for them to face next year. So if there's any success, it's going to be well earned with just the number of victories that they would have to pull off to get to, an 8-4 and 9-3.
Yeah, to echo what Travis was saying too about their portal class, I really like what they've done in the portal. And funny enough, both Indiana and Purdue have done a good job. They both have top 10 classes in the Rivals transfer portal rankings. But Nyland Green, the defensive back coming over from Georgia, you keep a kid in the conference. Reggie Love, a running back that people are familiar with in the conference, coming over to Purdue as well. And like those hard resets can be really tough. And I mean, that was one of the hardest ones, right? When you get a coach that is established and very good at that, and he leaves and he takes the entire staff, and then you've got the portal now, the roster kind of gets decimated. It's a tough situation to deal with for any school, but if you're a school that is kind of on the fringe there like a Purdue is, it's really difficult to just automatically reload in those situations. Like, it's just a hard ask.
Yeah, look what happened in the bowl game against LSU. Charlie Jones opted out. Aiden O'Connell opted out. They were so desperate for a coaching staff, they call in Drew Brees, who has never been a coach anywhere, as far as I know, and they have him as an assistant coach, and they just got throttled in the bowl game. A lot of Purdue fans are just like, okay, you write that off, because it was an odd situation, and I like what he's doing. Like you said, he's got some solid pickups in the transfer portal, and I think Purdue will earn it.
We'll certainly see Indiana, and now they are in that switch over, as we talked about, and we've seen a ton of new players that have been brought in by Curt Cignetti and his staff. But the one thing that is been a constant, virtually every one of them are what you would call mid-major guys, which I'm not saying that's an issue, because we see it all the time. Guys come up like, oh, he played it. But Georgia just gets a quarterback from UNLV. It happens all the time, but it's usually not all of them. Even Tom Allen, one thing that they did well, they did well in the portal, man. They would get guys, it didn't matter whether UCLA, Ole Miss, Clemson, North Carolina, from everywhere. And so it's going to be interesting to see if all of these mid-major guys can step up, but maybe it's part of the system. You want to talk about someone who has won a lot, and it has been Curt Cignetti. It's not been at this level, but he has won a lot. And when you just win, well, there's something there. It just doesn't happen by accident. It has to be culture. It has to be the program. It has to be getting the right guys to do what you want and how to do it. And I can tell you, Curt Cignetti is not going to be a guy. Indiana has had this quarterback merry-go-round the entire time under Tom Allen. It was every year, we won't know until it was starting. That was crap. And there was never been a worse edition of that than this year. That will not be the case under Curt Cignetti. Firstly, because I think Curtis Rhodes is going to be the starter without question. But he's a guy that is not going to play somebody because it seems like they're supposed to play. Taven Jackson kind of fell under that category for me. He transferred from Tennessee. He was the brother of Trace Jackson Davis, who was a big basketball star in Indiana. And I think he got the nod because some of that bled over. And I always thought that it should have been, dang on, I can't even think of Indiana's quarterback last year. Mine too much going blank, but I didn't think it should have been Taven. And then midway through the season, it wasn't. They make another switch. So that will not be a problem with Indiana going forward, at least. That's for certain. But can Indiana compete with what they're bringing in, do you think?
That is the gamble that he's making when you bring in portal players that have to kind of go up in a level, and you bring so many of them that it is a risk. Now and you do, like, you're right, you do see it where guys kind of come over, and they really blow up and they do well, but having so many when you're making the transition is going to be difficult. But I will give him this: there are a double digit of those guys, though, and they have 20 total portal commits coming in, the number 4 class, according to Rivals. Double digit guys coming over from James Madison. So when you mentioned the buzzword of culture, right? So if you want to instill your culture into the new program, and you want guys in basically every position group to be able to help you to push that, to pull that culture over from James Madison, you bring those guys with from the team, right? So that will help. And you usually see that. You just don't usually see this many of them, especially when you're coming from a James Madison to a Big Ten school. So that'll be, I think, when we get to, like, you get close to the season, we're all doing those like most intriguing storylines about insert team here. Like, that's going to be way up there for Indiana, I think, is that how do those guys make the adjustment to Big Ten football, and how many of those guys are going to be contributors, and how many are just kind of culture keepers inside of the locker room?
How important is it? We've talked about Kurt Signetti, and let me tell you, his bravado is not an act. I truly believe that he feels that way. He is, and I'm already thinking, oh God, some of these pressers are going to be something, because usually in an introductory press conference, you're pretty easygoing with the media. He started off right away. I mean, the Google Me thing. I asked him a question about dealing with NIL, and I should have been a little bit more clear. I said, you haven't really had to deal with it. And what I meant was, you're at James Madison, and NIL is not changing things at James Madison or at that level. You're coming to a level with Ohio State, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and all this. But I should have included all that. But anyway. He was like, I don't understand the question. We dealt with it at NIL at James Madison. We have a collective. And I'm like, dude, this ain't James Madison.
Not the same, man.
And but so his bravado was real. I think that Indiana kind of needs that, though, because this is a team that has just been, they haven't had that swagger because they have not earned it. They have not achieved it on the field. But I think maybe sometimes you have to have it already before you earn it. It's just a mental feeling.
Yeah, and I think that can help. I think that is something that, if you're a coach, if you walk in and you're like, oh man, it's going to be tough on us. Like, we've got a long road to go, but your coach is over there saying, no, Purdue sucks. Then yeah, I think that gives you a little bit of confidence going into it. And you kind of, what it does is it sets expectation, right? Like, from day one that your coach expects you to compete with the peers in the conference and be right there with them, even if you guys are in the transition. Whether or not that can actually happen or not is a whole separate thing, but at least giving the confidence, I think, is something that is important. It is generally important in sports, having confidence to be able to believe that you can do stuff. So I think that he can be a breath of fresh air in that way. The thing that it's going to be fascinating to see play out, though, if losses start to pile up and his demeanor continues to be the same at these press conferences, it will get ugly. Like, you guys have got a viral moment just waiting to happen at one of these press conferences based on the introductory one being the way that they were. If the losses come, it's going to be something to watch.